strolling through the downtown district of Kansas City, Missouri.
The Power and Light.
Power and Light District. About to go find some places to hang out for a little while until we go to Miss Kenyon speaking event later. Oh, there go the Power and Light District sign. Cool. All right, we out. Jazz and Negro League Museum. The young man just finished playing back there. He did pretty good. He did pretty good. What you think? He did all right?
Keep on playing.
Keep on playing. That's what I'm talking about. All right, we got to go on the jazz side. Bye. Say bye. Just came up on a little mixing board here. Kid about to put something together for the next beat he's gonna drop. How's it coming out? So far, so good. Yeah, it's coming out very good. So you got the drums, trombone on there, alto sax, tenor sax, bass. Oh, it's about to be on. Got you a picture in the Jazz Blues Festival.
Everything is built on the outside looking in is my friend, the late great Buck O'Neil, who is the only one of our collection of statues that's not in the National Baseball Hall of Fame. It is a travesty that Buck O'Neil is not in the National Baseball Hall of Fame. He missed by 1 vote in 2006, and honestly, it set off a tidal wave of anger amongst baseball fans worldwide. Buck handled the disappointment so graciously and would go to the Hall of Fame and speak on behalf of 17 others who had gotten in, all of them did. He became their voice. In one of the most selfless acts in American sports history, a little over 2 months later, he passed away himself at age 94, a month shy of his 95th birthday. But in this capacity, old Buck is managing this great all-star team that we assembled. And so what we hoped would happen was that our visitors would make their way in to the museum, come through the turnstiles, and the first thing you see is this baseball diamond. You peer through this old chicken wire, and we hope it gives you that desire that I can't wait to get out there and walk amongst the statues, take my pictures with the statues. But of course, here at the Negro Leagues Museum, we segregate you from the field. We wanted our visitors to at least remotely, particularly our young ones, to at least gain a remote understanding of what segregation was like. So in the case of these great athletes, knowing full well that they were good enough to play in the major leagues, so close to it, yet so far from it. So from most vantage points, you can see the field, but you can't get to it. And so the only way that you're allowed to take the field here, you have to earn that right. And you do so by learning their story. And so by the time you bear witness to everything that they had to endure just to play baseball, then the very last thing that happens here is now you take the field. And in many respects, you're now deemed worthy to walk out on the field with 10 of the baddest brothers to ever play this game. Yeah, they were great baseball players. Real quickly, going around the horn. At first base, from Rocky Mount, North Carolina, that's the legendary Walter Buck Leonard. Many believe Buck Leonard to be the greatest first baseman to have ever played this game. Now, if you are a fan of the history of our sport, compare it to Lou Gehrig, but believed to have greater defensive abilities than Gehrig, and the old timers in the Negro League say the greatest fastball hitter this sport has ever seen. They say sneaking a fastball past Buck Leonard was like trying to sneak sunrise past the rooster. You couldn't do it. He'd sit dead red and would not miss. At second base, that's John Henry Pop Lloyd. How good was Pop Lloyd? Babe Ruth called Lloyd the greatest baseball player he had ever seen. Shortstop from Wilmington, Delaware, that's the great William Judy Johnson. Third base, without question, the greatest third baseman to have never played in the major leagues, Ray Dandridge. Ray Dandridge made it up to the old Minneapolis Millers, which were the New York Giants AAA team. Ray Dandridge was named MVP of the Millers when he was 38 years old. There was no room in the major leagues for a 38-year-old black third baseman, so he never got that opportunity to fulfill that dream of playing in the major leagues. In left field, that's the legendary Negro League speedster, the legendary James Thomas Coop Papa Bell. First and foremost, the greatest nickname in baseball history. Coop Papa Bell is still believed to be the fastest man to ever play this game. Clocked him in an amazing 12 seconds, circling the bases from home to home. His good friend Satchel Paige would say of Coop that he was so fast he could walk in a room, turn off the lights, get in bed, pull up the covers before the room went dark. That is actually a true story, but I tell our guests all the time, you don't have to fictionalize speed of Cool Papa Bell. Cool Papa Bell once stole 175 bases in a less than 200 game season. He twice, honest to God's truth, twice scored from first base on a bunt in exhibition games against Major League All-Stars. Plays like the bunt and run, hit and run, perfected in the Negro Leagues, picked up by Major League Baseball. Old Buck says, they tells a great story, said they were playing in Mexico, and Cool goes from first to third so fast on a single that the Mexican team stopped the game in protest because they swore he had cut across the diamond. No man could get around the bases that fast. How fast was Cool Papa Bell? The legendary Jesse Owens, who at that time was the fastest man in the world, would never race Cool Papa Bell. Flat out refused to race Cool Papa Bell. Wow. In center field from Indianapolis, Indiana, that's the legendary Oscar Charleston, whom my friend Buck O'Neil would say without hesitation, the greatest baseball player he ever saw. Now, he thought Willie Mays to be the greatest major leaguer, and most people concur because Mays could beat you every way in which you could be beaten. Mays could beat you with his bat, with his legs, with his arm, with his glove, and of course his illustrious Negro Leagues career, baseball career began in the Negro Leagues with the Birmingham Black Barons. But old Buck believed that man in center field, Oscar Charleston, to be the greatest baseball player he ever saw. Oscar Charleston was an early era Negro Leaguer who could do it all. Hit for power, hit for average, could field, could run, could throw. In 1921, led the Negro Leagues in home runs, triples, doubles, stolen bases, and batting average in the same season. If you were going to compare him to a major league contemporary, he had the defensive abilities of Tris Speaker, the tenacity of Ty Cobb, and the bat of Babe Ruth rolled into one dynamic package. In right field, that's Leon Day. Leon Day lived long enough to know that he was going into the National Baseball Hall of Fame, died 6 days later in a Baltimore hospital. But at least he knew he was going in. Leon Day is enshrined in the Hall as a pitcher, and he was a great pitcher. But because of the way we chose the team based on when they went in the Hall of Fame, some of the guys are not in their natural position. But of course, if you played in the Negro Leagues, you played multiple positions. Buck swore to the day he died that Leon Day was a better center fielder than he was pitcher. And he's enshrined in the National Baseball Hall of Fame as a pitcher. Incredible baseball player. Catching, the legendary Josh Gibson, whom many will call the Black Babe Ruth. There are others who saw Gibson play who called Ruth the white Josh Gibson. Gibson was incredible. In 1936, the great power-hitting catcher hit 84 home runs in a single season. He had streams of 75, 71, and 69 in single seasons. He is still believed to be the only man to ever hit a ball completely out of Yankee Stadium. He hit one in the polo grounds that they estimated to travel over 600 feet. And as I share with our visitors, his steroids, ham hocks and collard greens. The man, as we say from Georgia, was just country strong. Yeah, he could hit that ball and he could hit it a long way, but he wasn't just a great power hitter. Josh was a great hitter. Lifetime batting average of 354. And in head-to-head competition against major leaguers in exhibition games, hit over 420. What makes it even more remarkable, particularly if you're a fan of the game, doing that as a catcher. Yeah, catchers don't do that. No, you get one or the other, power or average, but rarely do you get that combination of the two because the position is just so physically demanding. It beats your body up. Well, Josh wasn't a good catcher. He was a great catcher. Rifle arm. He's throwing guys out from the crouch back in that era. Buck said had complete control of his pitching staff, so he called a great game and was a good running catcher. He's going to steal you 20, 25 bases to go with that big bat of his. And when I say big bat, I mean big bat. 40 ounce, 41 inches, man. Yeah, you got to be a man to do that. Yeah, Josh dies tragically at age 35. Ironically, the same year that Jackie Robinson breaks the color barrier, 1947. Yeah, Gibson dies from a brain tumor. He knew he had the brain tumor, but he refused to have surgery because he was afraid he'd be left in a vegetative state. As you all well know, operating on the brain is tricky today, no less than the 1940s. And so he would eventually succumb to that brain tumor by way of stroke on January 20th, 1947. A very tragic ending to one of this game's all-time greatest players. Josh Gibson would have hit home runs in any league, in any era, had he been given the opportunity to do so. He was from Buena Vista, Georgia, and ultimately lived and died in Pittsburgh, where he spent so many years playing for teams like the Homestead Grays and Pittsburgh Crawfords. Now, hitting on our diamond is the great Latin star from Cuba. That is the great Martin de Higo. Nicknamed him El Maestro, the master, because he could do it all. Played all 9 positions, played all 9 of them well. He is the only baseball player in the history of our sport to be enshrined into 5 different countries' baseball halls of fame. Yeah, he's in the Mexican, Cuban, Venezuelan, Dominican, and in Cooperstown. Tremendous baseball player. And then certainly last but most definitely not least on the mound, the old man, the legendary Leroy Satchel Paige. Arguably the greatest pitcher this sport has ever seen. We know for certain the oldest rookie in the history of Major League Baseball. Baseball says that Satchel was 42 years old when he finally got his opportunity to pitch for the Cleveland Indians in 1948 as a rookie. Cleveland would win the World Series. As a matter of fact, it was the last time that Cleveland won the World Series. 1948 with Satchel Paige and Larry Doby. And of course, Larry Doby would break the color barrier in the American League just a few weeks after Jackie, but as it so commonly is in our society, We don't ever remember number 2. No. We remember the first guy.
Right.
Second guy just becomes an afterthought. It's only been in recent years that Larry Doby has finally gotten his just due for his trailblazing role in integrating the American League. But they win the World Series that year. Many thought Satchel should have been named Rookie of the Year. He goes 6-1 with a 2.4 ERA his rookie season at age 42, which means he was likely closer to 52. He never told his real age. And quite frankly, y'all, I don't think Satchel knew his real age. And that is not far-fetched. You know, a lot of people, particularly those born in the Deep South, did not know how old they were. You know, everybody back then was born at home to a midwife. And so Satchel was likely born in the early to mid-1890s in Mobile, Alabama. And he's born at home to a midwife. And so that birth record was kept where?
In the Bible.
Back page of the family Bible. And according to Satchel, the goat ate that page out the Bible. And so he didn't know. And Satchel would whimsically pose the question, how old would you be if you didn't know how old you were? Or that age is simply mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter. And that's just how he led his life. Now, in his prime, they clocked his fastball at 105 miles per hour. But what really made Satchel so special, and I can tell you now, 105 is pretty doggone special. But what really made Satchel so special, the pinpoint control. He could put it exactly where he wanted to put it, and even as an old man, he never lost that. So no, he couldn't throw it as hard as he once did by the time he gets to the major leagues, but he could put it exactly where he wanted to put it. You see, he didn't warm up in the bullpen like most pitchers do, throwing to the catcher across home plate. You know what Satchel would use? A stick of foil chewing gum wrapper. The catcher would sit the chewing gum wrapper on top of home plate. And wherever the catcher moved the chewing gum wrapper, Satchel right over the top of that chewing gum wrapper. And according to Satchel, he worked both corners of that chewing gum wrapper. He never lost that ability. I tell our guests all the time, there will never, ever, ever be another Leroy Satchel Paige. Not someone who combines the longevity, by his estimation, pitched in over 2,600 games. The great stuff. Recorded some 55 no-hitters and only God knows how many strikeouts. And the charisma. He could sell it. Yeah, but not only could he sell it, he could back it up. Old Buck says for his money, the 3 most charismatic athletes he ever saw were Satchel Paige, Dizzy Dean, and the late, great Muhammad Ali. Yeah, they could sell it, but they could back it up. So Satchel guys had all these names for his pitches. So he didn't have fastball, curveball, changeup. No, not Satchel. Satchel had what he called his midnight creeper. He had the 2-humper, the back dodger, the hesitation pitch. He had the long tom, the short tom, the jump ball, the trouble ball, the radio ball, the wobbly ball, the dipsy-doo. And he also had a pitch that he called his B-ball. You know why he called it the B-ball?
Why is that?
Satchel says, it bees where I want it to be. I want it to be there. And so he was incredible. One of my favorite Satchel Paige stories of many. I'm going to let you guys go through and walk this museum because I've talked to you all day. You'll never get a chance to see the place. The great Dodger broadcaster Vin Scully tells a wonderful story of Satchel and Whitey Herzog, which I just recently had verified by Whitey Herzog. He was here in town on our Jackie Robinson Day celebration, and the story has 1957, and Bill Veeck had brought Satchel back to pitch for the Miami Marlins in AAA baseball. Now, in 1957, if you believe that Satchel was born in 1906, which I absolutely do not, but for the record, if you believe that he was born in 1906, that makes him 51 years old. He's still pitching highly effective in AAA baseball, and they're playing, Whitey Herzog was playing outfield for the Rochester AAA team. They're in Rochester, and Whitey says he's in the outfield. The Rochester team had a promotion. They had a knothole in the outfield wall. And the promotion said that if any batter could hit a ball through that knothole on the fly, you could win $100,000. Well, it was virtually impossible. But anyway, Whitey says he's out in the outfield jogging, and he decides to see if a baseball would fit in that knothole. Well, there's just enough circumference to squeeze that baseball through. He goes and gets Satchel. He says, Satchel, you always talking about how great your control is and how you can throw a baseball over a piece of chewing gum wrapper. I bet you a bottle of Granddad's bourbon that you can't throw a baseball through this knot hole. Satchel says, and Satchel had a nickname for everybody. He says, Wild Child, will the ball fit? Herzog shows him that there's just enough circumference to squeeze that baseball through. Satchel says, Wild Child, I'll take that bet. So Herzog says the very next day he gets to the ballpark early, he goes out to the outfield, he steps off 60 feet 6 inches. He puts down the pitching rubber. He's going to give Satchel 3 tries to throw this ball through this knot hole. He says Satchel takes the baseball like a hunter is looking through the telescope of his rifle, and he measures. And he says the first pitch goes in the hole but spins out. He says he's in freaking disbelief. He says the very next pitch, right through the hole. He says Satchel reaches down, picks up the bottle of bourbon, says, Wild Child, I'll take that, and saunters on off and He was absolutely incredible, but as the great Satchel Paige would say, there were a lot of Satchel Paiges in this league known as the Negro Leagues. And it's so fitting that we now have a place where their contributions not only to our sport are being remembered, but their contributions to our society. And it's at a time, folks, when there are only a handful of these legendary athletes still with us. So what stood at risk, this story was going to die when that last Negro Leaguer left the face of this earth. We cannot allow that to happen. I tell our guests all the time, the Negro Leagues Museum doesn't need to survive. It has to survive, so we don't lose this piece of baseball and Americana, so that our children will have a place to come and learn something that none of us were privy to during our own formal educations. But not only learn it for its educational significance, but also for its inspirational merit. And if you walk away from this story with nothing other than this, what the Negro Leagues teaches us is quite simple. In this great country of ours, if you dare to dream and you believe in yourself, you can do and be anything you want to be. You see, they dared to dream playing baseball. They had no idea they were making history. They didn't care nothing about making no history. They just wanted to play ball. But the passion, the pride, the dedication, the determination, the courage, the perseverance that they demonstrated in the face of adversity would not only change our game, it changed our country. And I tell our guests all the time, this story is not about the adversity, but rather what they did to overcome the adversity. And that is a story that transcends race, it transcends age, and it transcends gender. So again, on behalf of our team here at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, thanks to each and every one of you for giving us a part of your day. I hope you enjoy the Negro Leagues Museum experience. For those of you that I didn't get an opportunity to meet, I'm Bob Kendrick. I'm president here for the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. So thank you all so much for coming. One last thing, the chicken wire is symbolic of American segregation. During that era, if black fans were allowed in to watch a Major League game, this is how we were separated. So black fans sat typically down the left or right field lines. We would be separated from white fans in the rest of the ballpark with that same chicken wire barrier. Here we use the chicken wire to separate all of our guests from the centerpiece of our exhibition. So please make yourselves at home.
Yep, here we go. Kansas City, Missouri. We out here on these bikes. What's up? Look at them back there. Hey, girls. Kim, you want to do this? All right. Let me put this phone up before I crash and burn. Hey, we got brake lights.